It feels unfair when others get what you want. It feels even worse when what you have gets taken away from you. What do you do during such times? Well, here are a few lessons on just that from Chhatrapati Shivaji Maharaj's life. We're talking about the 1665 Treaty of Purandar, or rather, what happened after that. The treaty was probably the biggest jolt in Shivaji's life. Mirza Raja Jai Singh, who was serving under Aurangzeb, made Shivaji surrender 23 out of his 40 odd forces and pay a hefty fee as fine. Shivaji had been a thorn in Aurangzeb's side until then. And not just that, he also ensured that Sambhaji would be in Mirza Raja's custody until Shivaji fulfilled the terms of the treaty. Sambhaji was just about 8 or 9 years at that time. Think of what Shivaji must have undergone. Stripped of everything, his title, his kingdom, his son taken away from him. He was nothing. In fact, he was contemplating taking his own life. When his mother Jijabai heard this, she reminded him of the 14 years of exile that Lord Ram went through. And she said, when the gods had to endure hardships, who are you and I to question our fate? Here's the thing though, Jijabai was not using empty rhetoric or shallow words. She had lived this philosophy. Her husband left her in her brother's care when she was 7 months pregnant with Shivaji. She gave birth to Shivaji in a barren, unknown land, and she practically raised him as a single parent, enduring the death of her elder son and her husband along the way. Eventually, Shivaji prevailed, and that victory of his is what leads us to the three lessons we're going to discuss today when life takes the exact opposite direction of what you had expected. Lesson number one, don't run away from your problems, face them. A few months after the Treaty of Purandar, Shivaji was ordered to be present at Aurangzeb's court. Raje knew this was a trap, and he could very easily have escaped or wallowed in self pity or hidden himself in the fort, but he chose to do none of that. He showed up at Aurangzeb's court, he got captured, and he eventually escaped imprisonment and an attempted murder on his life along with his men. What's the lesson for us? Well, there are situations in life where we are faced with fight or flight. These are our two responses. And in many responses, when we should fight for what we believe in, we rather choose flight. What I'm saying is, learn from Shivaji and fight. Even if you go down, you will go down fighting. Lesson number two, learn from your mistakes so you don't repeat them. After escaping from Aurangzeb's clutches, Shivaji and his men roamed around as mendicants or bhikshuks for a few months. They could not go home because Aurangzeb's men were looking for them. These bhikshuks would go to homes and beg for food. Certain families would invite them inside and feed them. In one such family, when they were eating, then the dal from the partition between the dal and rice in Shivaji's plate flooded over and went onto the rice. The woman in that home laughed and said, "You are just like Shivaji. He did not strengthen his existing forts, but he jumped into expanding his territory." And look what happened. That woman did not know who Shivaji was. But this was a huge lesson for Raje. After his return, one of his priorities was to fix this mistake, which he did by strengthening his existing forts before he went out to reconquer the ones he had lost. Our lesson from this? We all make mistakes. To make mistake is human. But what do you want to be remembered for? The mistake or how you responded to it? A mark of strength and wisdom is to learn from your mistakes and ensure you fix them in such a way that they never get repeated. And the third and final lesson is to always retain your essence. Whether it was the Treaty of Purandar, whether it was the humiliation at Aurangzeb's court, whether he was a bhikshuk or whether he was a king, Shivaji never lost his essence. He retained his intelligence, his shrewdness, his courage, and his purpose of Hindavi Swaraj. Here is what we should remember from it. If circumstances change you for the worse, they've beaten you, they've won. But you are not put on this earth to be beaten, to be fettered, or to be chained. You are here to discover and fulfill your purpose and live a meaningful life. Don't be the person who gets in your own way. Don't let circumstances change you. Whenever you feel down, whenever you feel out, remind yourself of the words Mirza Raja used to praise Shivaji. He said, "One should make himself so powerful that while writing the decrees of destiny on his forehead, God would ask, 'My child, tell me what you wanted to be.'" Jijabai and Shivaji are what Nassim Taleb calls anti-fragile. They're not fragile enough to break in a stressful situation, nor are they like the phoenix, which, once it turns into ashes, will regain its original shape. Anti-fragile people will become stronger after a situation. They will use adversity as a fuel to grow, turning every challenge into an opportunity. Life will beat you down. It does that to all of us. But if you don't want to stay down, remember the three lessons. 1. Face your problems, don't run away from them. 2. Learn from your mistakes so that they don't get repeated. And 3. Always retain your essence. What other lessons have you learned from this episode? I would love to hear your thoughts, so do leave a comment. But I'll also leave you with a parting question. How does one believe in themselves? How does one continue walking on the path when life is not turning out the way you want? Well, if you want to know how, here is a teaching from Swami Vivekanand on the subject. And until next time, namaste.